If you've been looking for a video where someone compares all different types of axes to determine what makes a great flying axe, you found it. Me and Dave went inside and took a few of my axes out, 23 of them laying on the table right here. And I'm going to talk to you guys about what makes a good flying axe. I've got World Axe Throwing League axes that are traditionally hafted, other axes that are traditionally hafted that are not designed for axe throwing. I've got Tomahawks, friction fit style axes, and I've even got all steel and plastic handled axes or polypropylene handled axes in this video. And we're going to go over all of them, and I'm going to tell you guys what, in my experience, makes a good flying axe. And we'll talk about if there's an axe out there that you can actually buy that comes to you perfect. You don't have to do anything to.
Good luck with that.
So let's get into the video. Welcome back to Midgard Axe. I am Wes, the Suburban Viking.
I'm Dave, master of throwing axe rituals.
And we're talking about what makes a great throwing axe, right? Everybody out there wants to know, Wes, what axe is really great for axe throwing? If you guys haven't been a part of my channel, go back and watch some other videos because I have done a ton of reviews on axes. Work axes, tomahawks, throwing axes, all kinds of different axes. All steel, plastic handled. And I've got all of those on the table here.
You almost cut me getting these all out.
And I will be up front with you guys and tell you every single one of these axes on the table has been modified. I have yet to find the perfect throwing axe. I have yet to have one come to my house, open the box up, take it outside and throw it and say, you don't have to do anything to it, it's perfect. You don't have to do anything to it.
The only axes that are perfect are ones that the user has put time and effort into.
That's right, Dave, that's right. So in this video here, I'm going to start with World Axe Throwing League axes. We're going to go to work axes, we're going to go to tomahawks, and then we're going to go to all steel and polypropylene handled axes. And I'm going to tell you guys, in my experience, in my opinion, what makes a great throwing axe. Been on social media now for about 2 years, and I think I've showcased my skill. Haven't showcased all of it yet. We still got some time. I'm going to show you guys some more stuff of what I can do. But that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to tell you guys what I think over years of dealing with all kinds of different axes, work axes, tomahawks, dedicated throwing axes, all steel axes, what I think you have to do in order to make a great flying axe. Getting into dedicated throwing axes, the World Axe Throwing League Ragnar axe. It's a great axe. It's weighted really nice up top, and they've done different cuts in it to make it just fly really well. You can throw it for distance, you can throw it up close. Even though it is a competition throwing axe, I've modified mine to be able to throw it from distance with this handle here. This is not the handle that it came with. I didn't like the handle it came with. I put a new handle on it, and it fits my hand perfectly now. So this is the prime example of the axe head was really good, but the handle wasn't. Now I did shave some weight off the axe head up here where the toe's at, going back towards the eye of the axe. And I shaved this down too to give it more of a bit down here at the heel, going back towards the axe head down here at the bottom. But it's a great flying axe. It really is. Now if you're wondering, Wes, does those cuts in the axe heads matter? It does in a sense, depending on how the person that's designed the axe, how they want to distribute the weight on the axe head. Now, I will tell you, you can't always look at a picture online and say, that's going to be a good flyer or it's not. I'm usually pretty good about it. But I'll show you guys one axe that I was wrong about, which is the World Axe Throwing League Corporal. As you guys can see here, look at the size of this pole. Look how thick it is right here, and then it kind of tapers out into a thin bit and thin cheeks. Now, most of the time, in my experience, in my opinion, when you throw pole heavy axes, they might do really well for a single rotation. You might be able to squeak in a double, but for the most part, they're not very versatile. Normally speaking, pole heavy axes get a lot of wobble when you throw them for distance. I didn't have that going on with the Corporal. And I think they designed this really well, and I think the reason why it's designed so well is because even though it has a really heavy pole in the back, it starts to taper pretty quick about right in here. A lot of your pole heavy axes seem to be the same thickness from here all the way up to about here, and they don't start tapering until they start getting about to where the axe handle comes out right in this area here. So I think they tapered it perfectly to make it a really hard hitting smashing throwing axe up close, but being able to take it back for triple rotations and be accurate with it. So the axe design in this axe head was perfectly done for a heavier style throwing axe. And that's just my experience. Now, getting into some of the heavier axe heads and talking about ones that do really well for a single and double, but don't do well for distance, is the World Axe Throwing League Kill Shot, which has the fiberglass handle. As you guys know, I've done a review on this one. This thing is great for a single rotation. They did a really good job. The handle is really long, at about almost 18 inches long. It's like 17 and a half or 17 and 3/4. The axe head is pretty heavy. This thing is coming in at 1 pound and like 7.5 ounces. So it's no light axe for axe throwing in the most part. However, they designed this one really well to be able to be thrown at a single rotation, to smash really hard, and to feel really good in the hand when it's coming out. But you go back to double rotations or farther and it does not perform. And it has a lot to do with the axe head weight and how it's distributed on the axe head. As you can see here, we have a thicker pole. And then as it goes down, it really doesn't start to taper until you get about right here, but it maintains thickness in the axe head where the eye is in the axe handle and the axe head. There's a lot of thickness up in here. That matters. It does. So if you're looking at axe heads online, that's something you really need to be paying attention to if you want to start throwing it, is start paying attention where the axe eye is, how thick the axe head is in this area here. If it's really thick, then it's going to be pretty heavy. And if it's got a thick pole in the back, it may not fly well for distance, okay? But this one right here is a great flyer up close. I just don't think it was really designed for distance axe throwing because of the weight. Another non-traditional axe is the Grensvorsbruk broad axe. This is the video that I made called a modern day Dane axe for axe throwing. This thing is a freaking monster, okay? Just being honest. Now this head did not come this way. I completely redesigned this axe head, but I put some heavy modifications into this thing. But it is a great flyer. In the video, and I'll put it in now, of throwing this thing for a double rotation. This thing is weighing 3 pounds and I think it's like 5 or 6 ounces right now. So it's not light at all, but it flies so well for a single and double rotation. Now it probably wouldn't have flown very well had I not done the design that I did in the axe head. But that's just something that we have to do sometimes, right? Sometimes we have to go in and we have to shave weight off of axe heads to make them great flyers. Now I know this wasn't designed for axe throwing, but when you have a ton of steel on an axe head, you can really design what you want, taking weight off wherever you want, in the pole, in the cheeks, up at the top, down here at the bottom. You can take axe head weight off anywhere you want to make it a great flyer, and that's exactly what I did here. I used the original handle that it came with, and it just worked out for a great flying axe. Heavy modification though. Probably wouldn't be able to throw that the way it comes, and it probably work out very well, especially for a double rotation. The Rinaldi Milano Carpenter's axe, one that I've done features on before, this thing is great. As you can see here, I used the Grensvorsbruk broad axe handle with it, and it's awesome. I love this thing. And I did heavy modification on the axe head to make it fly well. Really cheap axe head, like 30 or 40 bucks. Put it on a handle that I already had, and it worked out really well. This thing is great because the way that I designed this axe head, I didn't do it on purpose, I'll be honest. It just kind of worked out that way where this thing is really light. I mean, it really is, but it hits with force when I throw it into my target, which I really like. And it has a longer handle, something that I kind of go back and forth between longer handles and shorter handles. They do matter depending on the axe head weight, and we'll talk about that later in the video. And of course, one of the axes that made Midgard axe, the Husqvarna Carpenter's axe. Look at this thing. Completely modified. The handle's been modified. The head's been modified. But man, this thing is great. Now, I will tell you guys, the Husqvarna Carpenter's axe is not the best axe. It really isn't. It's actually a little crude. And it's not the best when you get it for axe throwing. But with design work in the axe head, because you get a ton of steel, you can make these things lighter. You can distribute the weight where you want it by taking weight off here and there and make it a great flyer. The handles that come from Husqvarna, which are made by Holzbrück, we all know that, are great. They're tanks, and you can thin these handles down really thin, and they'll still hold their density and their strength. which is something that I've always praised Holtzbruch on, is their axe handles. Now, when you go to modify axes, you really have to pay attention. You got to kind of know what you're doing, which takes practice and takes learning, throwing different axe head weights, taking weight off the pole, being able to throw it at a double rotation and go, I took too much weight off, there's still too much weight in the pole, and then you take it off. It's trial and error. It really is. And just me modifying axes over the years and throwing so many, I know what to do with them. Especially with the Grenzfurstbruch carpenter's axe. I need to fix this bit. It's got a little rust on it, huh? I need to fix that. This thing's great too. Now, a lot of people consider this for axe throwing, but it's a great multi-purpose tool. Now, I can throw this axe unmodified, the axe head. Even with this modification in it, adjusting the weight, it flies exactly the same. Now, you're probably wondering, well, Wes, if you took weight off the axe head, why is it flying almost the same as it would if you didn't make modifications to the axe head? And that's a great question. And the reason being is because I don't think it has anything to do with the actual axe head weight. Now, it might not wobble as much for distance as one that's not modified. If I was to go inside and throw both, I think the ones that come stock wobble a little bit more than this one does. But I'm still getting wobble. And I'm going to show in a future video, because I've got another video that's going to come out after this one about modifying axes and how I modify them, and showing you guys what I've done to axes to make them better flyers and throwing them in that video. I think the reason why this one wobbles so much is because the handle's too long and it's too thick. I think if I thin this handle down and chop this handle to about here, I think a lot of the wobble would come out at distance, and I'll feature that in a future video. But that's some of the work axes that I've done modifications to, and that I've got and kind of just made my own, that have made great axes for axe throwing. Traditionally hafted axes that I just showcased here, like the World Axe Throwing League axes and work axes that we have here, you can make great axes for axe throwing. I've showcased using work axes in this on this channel, designing them and modifying them to make them great flyers and dedicated axes for axe throwing. You just got to do a really good job when you take the axe heads off to modify them, that you haft them back correctly. One of the biggest things that I find in a lot of people when they talk about the throwing axes is the heads coming loose. So you got to make sure that you haft them back on, or haft them correctly. Kind of like the World Axe Throwing League Lieutenant axe that's over there. I'm going to do a review on it. I hafted that one on a new handle from the jump. I wanted a new handle on it. I wanted to haft it the way that I wanted to, because I thought it would make a great flyer. You also have to consider the length in some of these axe handles, because you're dealing with wood. Some wood is a little bit lighter than others if you're dealing with ash or hickory or whatever wood you're dealing with. Minor modifications on axe handles will change the way they fly. And I'm talking like 2 inches, guys. I know you're thinking 2 inches isn't going to make that big of a difference. It will make a difference in weight, it will make a difference in hand placement, and it will make a difference on how you release the axe just from 1.5 to 3 inches when you take that off the axe handle. I'm telling you it works, and I've proven that with the World Axe Throwing League axes. When I've taken 1 to 3 inches off axe handles, and they become great flyers. Ones that didn't perform well for me at triple rotations, now that do. So you don't have to make heavy modifications like you've seen here on some of these traditionally hafted axes to make them great flyers. You don't. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of modification to the handle, whether it be thinning it down or taking a couple inches off the bottom, and it'll make a great flyer. So think about that when you get some of these axes and you're looking at them. Even if the handle looks too long, you can always cut it down. Don't pass on an axe because the handle's too long. That's kind of disingenuous to me. Cut the axe handle down to where you want it. Thin it down, and you should be good. You can play around with traditionally hafted axes too, more so than you can with all steel, because you can take these axe heads off these handles and put new handles on the axe heads. And that's something that you need to consider too. Is it worth buying these axes if you like the axe head but you don't like the handles? Is it worth spending that kind of money? I think it is sometimes. I really do. These axes right here, the Grenzfurstbruch carpenter's axes, are great. And those heads will last you probably a lifetime. If the handles break, you can always put new handles on them, thin them down, make them how you want them. But you got to consider that. With traditionally hafted axes, you do have a lot of options. So if you like the axe head but not so much the handle, don't worry about it. Take that handle off, put one on you like. And remember that when you're looking for axes online or in your local hardware store or wherever you go to buy your axes. Friction fit or Tomahawk style axes are a completely different breed in their own. We got the Wrangler Tools Titanium Tomahawk here. We got 2 of them. And like I showed you guys in the review, they come with an 18-inch handle and an 11.5-inch handle. The 11.5-inch handle is great for axe throwing. The 18-inch handle, not so much. And I talked to the owner of Wrangler Tools and I said, I think if you made a handle that was anywhere between 14 to 15.5 inches long, it would be even better at that length than the 11.5-inch handle. Here we are. I'm going to do another review on these. These are coming in both at 14.5 inches long. I wanted to get them at 15 or 15.5 inches, but as you guys know, these handles are curved. One of the very few Tomahawks you can get with a curved handle, right? And the curve was too high up. So I was only able to get them at max 14.5 inches, but I will tell you, putting these things in my hand at 14.5 inches long, they feel so good, and I can't wait to throw them. Now, like I said with the traditionally hafted axes, sometimes you gotta do modifications. We've cut the handle down on these, we've thinned them down a little bit, and I've had to do work on the cheeks. The cheeks are a little fat on these, and I think with the way that I've fixed the cheeks and the bit design, it's gonna sink a lot deeper than it was before. Now, I left this one unmodified, and I thinned the cheeks down pretty hardcore on this one and gave it a very thin bit profile to see if it's gonna sink deeper than this one. So if you're interested in knowing about bit and cheek design and how I do mine, and if it does affect penetration with axe throwing, come back and watch a future video where I talk about these, because I do know already but that it's gonna work, but come back and watch it anyway. CRKT Nobo is a great flyer too. Came to me the way it came, and I decided to modify the handle. It was a little bit too thick and it needed to be cut down. I think these handles are way too long for these axe heads. So here's another friction fit style axe that I had to modify. And that's something I was just talking to you guys about, is modifying these axe handles. I didn't have to do anything to this axe head other than thin the cheeks and the bit profile. It's weighted really nice. But the handle's way too long, and you get a different experience throwing if you throw it with a longer handle. You just do. I'm telling you, if you guys get some cold steel cheap axes, cut the handles down at different lengths, and come back and tell me if you've noticed a difference in the way that you throw it, if your accuracy improves, if the way you're able to throw it for distance improves. I'm telling you it does. Cold steel Norse Hawk. Another friction fit Tomahawk style axe. Great axe for axe throwing, but the handle's too long. Cut it down. Also thin the bit and the cheeks. Got a couple gouges there. But all in all, this thing is a great flyer. It's almost probably just as good as CRKT Nobo once you cut the handle down. As you guys can see here, look at this. I cut the handles down at the exact same length, because even though the design in the axe head is completely different, they both perform exactly the same. In my opinion, they do. They really do. So if you get an axe like this and you cut the handle down and thin the bit and the cheeks and you say, man, this thing's a great flyer the way it comes, try modifying other axes to almost the same specifications, and you'll find out you'll get 2 different axes, but both fly almost exactly the same. Now, the Cold Steel Trailhawk is another great flyer that I judged before I bought it. Now, the handle comes in at 22 inches long. I noticed how small this head was, and I thought that the handle was probably a little bit too long. And I didn't care for how small this bit was. Now, I will tell you, you can probably throw it with a 22-inch handle, but I think cutting it down to 15 inches makes it an extremely versatile axe for axe throwing. And in my opinion, this is where axe handle length and axe head weight matter. Now, you can probably get it the way it comes and throw it at 22 inches long and probably be able to stick it just fine. But I will say, take that same handle, cut it down to 15 inches, and you will see that the handle length and the head weight is perfectly matched at this length right here. I just think it's better that way. Thin the bit, thin the cheeks, put it on a 15-inch handle, and then this became extremely versatile. And as you guys know, I was throwing the hell out of this thing, throwing it really hard, throwing for distance. And I will say, out of all these, I feel like this is more of a traditional tomahawk when I think about a tomahawk. So that's why I cut my handle down. I just thought that maybe the handle was a little too long for how light and small this axe head was. And I think I was right. And I think other people out there, if you have that at 22 inches, try cutting it down and come back and tell me. But I think it'll make a great flyer at 15 inches. You're matching the handle length with that head weight at that point. and it makes a great flyer. Now the Francisca throwing axe by Condor was really one of the very first friction fit or tomahawk style axes that I've dealt with that I didn't really have to do much to. Now I will say, I judged it based on the axe handle because it is really thin. So maybe this is going to be one of those axes that you judge online and say that handle looks way too thin for me. I'm not going to throw it well. And you probably would be right. It's really thin here, as you can see. Very thin. But I'll tell you guys, I normally don't like very thin axe handles, but I was able to throw this very, very well. So this is one of those times where your judgment may be correct. It's got too thin of an axe handle. I don't throw them very well. But I still insist that you guys try it out because it could just be the weight in the axe head that you're throwing with that thin handle, and it just doesn't work out very well. Where this one right here is perfectly weighted for this very thin handle. The only thing I had to do to this thing was thin the bit and the cheeks. They come a little thick. But other than that, it's got great fitment on the handle, and it works out really well for distance, up close, throwing hard. And once you thin the bit and cheeks down, you can throw it moderately at a single rotation. Because of the way that the axe head is designed, weighted with this thin handle, it works out really well. It just does. And I insist, trying things out. Just because it doesn't work on one axe for you doesn't mean it won't work on another. Try not to get that in your brain that, oh, thin handles don't work for me, so that means I got to stay away from all thin handles. That may not be the case. I think the only thing that I've ever come out and said that I will never work with again is glass-filled nylon handles, just because I don't think the integrity is in those handles for axe throwing. I just don't. But when it comes to everything else, I'm keeping an open mind because, like I said, it may not work with the axe that I'm holding in my hand right this second. But it doesn't mean that it won't work with me for another axe that's similar. Head weight, head length has a lot to do with it too. Handle weight, handle length. You got to factor in all that, guys, when you're trying to determine what axe to buy. Getting into all steel axes, we got the Recon Hawk by Cold Steel. As you guys know, I'm not a big fan of it. When I originally got this and took it out and started throwing it, I didn't like pretty much everything about it. I don't think it's weighted properly. I think it's too long for an all steel axe. It just didn't hit for me. I just didn't like it. Now I was able to throw it, but I just didn't like it. And I told you guys in that video what I was going to do to this thing to make it a better flyer, and I thought I could redesign it. So as you guys can see here, I've redesigned it. And doing a little bit of a weight test now. Watch this, guys. Keep my fingers straight, watch. Keeping my fingers straight. I'm not tipping it with these fingers at all, watch. We've got bit rotation. Now the bit is rotating itself forward, which is exactly the way that I want it to, which tells me that now the weight distribution is fixed and it should be a better flyer. I've yet to throw it. That's that video I was talking to you guys about earlier where I said come back and watch how I modify axes to make them better flyers. That's a prime example right there. As you guys saw at the beginning of the video, when I was talking about this, it's not weighted properly. It's just not a good flyer, but with modification, now it's rotating the way I want it to rotate. Tell you guys, I know what I'm talking about when it comes to this stuff. Just like the calculated survival Norse throwing hatchet. I think a lot of people judge this based on the way it looks and probably judge it based on it having a glass-filled nylon handle. Glass-filled nylon handles suck. Don't buy them. It comes with one, so you can keep it if you need it, but I would suggest getting the aluminum handle that they offer to put on this axe head. It changes the way this thing flies. It changes the way that it rotates in the air, and it just does something to it. And I will tell you guys this, not all modifications actually do anything to the axe. They just don't. I think at that point in time, it's just mental, right? Oh, if I thin this axe handle down, I know I can throw it better. We thin it down and we start throwing it better. How much of your axe throwing game is mental? I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, I can't believe he's talking about that.
My mental state is tested every day here.
Look at every single person that throws anything for a sport and tell me that it's not mental. Baseball players get into ruts, pitchers get into ruts where they can't even throw a strike. They're walking people. Everybody gets into ruts. And a lot of this does have to do with mental. So I will say this. Sometimes if you know you have a good axe and you know everybody else is throwing it well, try doing something minor to it. Thin the handle down a little bit and think to yourself, if I just thin this axe handle down, it's going to make it a better flyer. You'd be shocked. I've actually done that before, and it's worked for me. So not only is modifications important, like these all steel and traditionally hafted and tomahawk style axes, the weight and the head design and the handle lengths, but try your mental game too and see if that helps, because it did for me. Now, all steel axes always bring the same thing, which is these grip panels on here. The CRKT Jenny Wren, which has seen better days, and the Cove of Blackthorn. Great flyers, guys. As you can see here, I have torn these handles up, beaten these axes to hell. As you can probably see with all my axes, and Dave will concur. We don't treat our axes lightly here at Midgard Axe. I put them through the ringer, do I not, Dave?
We test them so much that Loki now asks me for axe throwing advice. He's still a douche.
That's right. We want to bring you the best axes possible, which means you have to test the hell out of them, which is what we do. And these grip panels here make a huge difference when you're buying all steel axes. Some are great and some are not. You'll have ones that have bolts in them, like the Cove of Blackthorn here, where they put 3 bolts in these grip panels to keep them on the steel ferrule. Whereas on the CRKT Jenny Wren, we have more of a rivet design in the axe handle going through it, I should say, to keep these grip panels on. Now, I will tell you, the bolts, in my opinion, are going to be a little bit better than the rivets are, because you can always replace bolts and you can always tighten up bolts, where with rivets you can't. As you guys know, the CRKT Jenny Wren has come loose a little bit. It's not insanely loose, but it's come loose a little bit. Whereas if you have an axe with bolts in the handle, you can tighten them up. Even if the bolts come out, you can go search for new bolts to put in, and you'll be able to put those in fairly easily. Loctite them, I will tell you that. If you get all steel axes with bolts in the handles, Loctite them, because they do come loose. A lot of different reasons causes these bolts to come loose. You got to remember that when you're throwing an all steel axe, you're going to have a lot more vibration going down the handle when that bit strikes the target than you would with maybe a wooden handled axe. The wooden handled axes disperse weight differently and vibration and impact differently than an all steel axe handle does. You're not going to get as much vibration and impact on your hands when you're striking with a wooden handled axe compared to if you were to take this and chop with it with a steel handled axe, right? You're going to feel a little bit more impact, and you're going to feel a little bit more vibration in the handle, because the way that the impact vibrates and travels through steel compared to wood. So that has a lot to do with why these steel axes have bolts that come loose a lot. A lot of times it's based on the bolts that the manufacturers use, and they're just not good for impacts. That's why I say you should always Loctite your bolts on steel axes. It'll help. Now, getting into something a little differently is the polypropylene axes by Cold Steel, the Warhawk and the Trench Hawk. These things are great for axe throwing. They're very cheap. You can buy replacement handles for them. And like I showed you guys in a previous video when I did a review on the Honshu Corrido axe head, I took that Honshu Corrido axe head and custom fit it on a polypropylene handle. Made for a great flyer. The Honshu Corrido axe head sucks, doesn't it, Dave?
How do you make an axe that the bit literally falls apart? It's bad.
Yeah, that bit just falls all apart for axe throwing, hard axe throwing. It's a novelty in my experience. But these things right here aren't bad. They're not. The axe heads are great. They fly really well in the air, and they make for great flyers. But I will tell you this, I tested them the way they came, and then I cut the handles down to 15.5 inches. And I will tell you, in my experience, I think they fly better and they're more versatile at 15.5 inches. So if you wanted to get an axe that maybe you didn't have to do a lot of modifications to, but you know a little modification will make them better flyers, then get these. Chop the handles down to 15 inches or 15.5 inches. Very easy to do. You can use a saw, cut them down, and then round the edges over with a Dremel bit or even with a file. Very, very minor modifications that make these things fly way better, in my opinion. So there's that. And then you got these like 3-pack all steel axes that almost every manufacturer offers. I've seen them from Ned Foss to the World Axe Throwing League, Smith & Wesson. I mean, all kinds of different companies, especially on Amazon, carry like these all steel, very small, like 12 inches and smaller all steel axes. Some of them are great. I've done reviews on the Ned Foss ones. They hold up pretty well, and they fly really well. I will say that some of your cheaper all steel axes that are in that size usually are a little bit thinner. So you can throw them well and they fly really well in the air, but they're not going to hit insanely hard, and they're just not going to be like a real smash and grab into the target, you know what I mean? Like it's just going to hit and you're going to go, cool, it hit, but it's going to feel more like a knife throw. Whereas the World Axe Throwing League axes that they offer, these competition hawks, are gonna smash a little bit harder because you can see here, they're pretty thick.
That's what she said.
They're thicker, and that's one thing that I noticed later on, and when I did the checked out the specs after I bought them, because I didn't check the specs before I bought them, which was they're thicker, which makes them hit harder in the target. These things are great up close, and they're great for long distance axe throwing. Now, of course, with all steel axes, like I was saying, these handles aren't the best. They make these little nylon handles that go on these, they are junk. Just in my opinion, they're not gonna hold up. So you better be prepared to buy them and replace them. Someone said in a previous video that you can get them for like $3.95 per axe. So if you don't care that they're gonna break and they're cheap, then buy a bunch of them. In my experience using these here, I'm gonna use these to break the record for the world's longest axe throw. I'm not gonna wanna keep doing that, so I'm gonna come up with my own grip to put on here, but these things are great. I didn't have to do very much modification to them other than to fix the grip panels on them because they're not the greatest. I didn't have to sharpen the bit, and I didn't have to sharpen the spike. Even though the spike isn't sharp at all, it's still sunk into the target and it's still stuck. So that was really cool. They do put relief cuts in some of these all steel axes to kind of reduce weight, which is nice too. You do have that option with all steel axes. If you have an axe that doesn't fly well and say it's got a ferrule on it, like the Recon Hawk that's not flying well, you can take this ferrule here and drill holes in it. Think about that too with all steel axes. If you've got some solid ones, consider drilling some relief cuts in those axe handles. I know you don't think it will matter, but I'm telling you, like I said before, even some very minor modifications can change the way that you throw an axe and the way that they fly in the air. Guys, this is only a small portion of the axes that I actually have and own. And that's not including axes that I've gotten rid of or given away as free giveaways in the 2 years I've been on social media. Or even all the time I've thrown axes and dealt with axes before social media. What makes a great flying axe? I think that's speculative, right? My idea of a great flying axe might be different than yours. My weight distribution on axes that I find to be great for axe throwing might be different on yours. I'll say this. I think what makes a great flying axe is one that you can throw and stick into the target and be accurate with. One that you don't dread picking up. One that you get excited about when you pick it up and put it in your hand and you go, I'm gonna go outside and throw this axe, or I'm gonna go outside and throw this axe and it's gonna be a lot of fun. That to me is what makes a great flying axe. Now how you get there is based on you. Some of you might pick up some of these axes and do very minor modifications to them, a lot less modifications than I've done to mine, and say, Wes, these are great flyers for me, and I only did minor modifications. I would say great. If that works for you, great.
Still consider an axe ritual though.
That's the whole point, is finding great axes that fly well for you. I'm just giving you guys what my experience is and the things that I've done to axes to make them great flyers for me. You got to remember, handle length, head length, head weight, overall weight, bit design, cheek design, all of that stuff matters, guys. It really does. Now, if you're okay just sitting at a single rotation and throwing, I'll be honest with you, all these axes on this table right here, unmodified the way they come, I could stand at a single rotation and be accurate and throw them. And I'm not tooting my own horn, I'm just saying. You can take any of these axes out here unmodified and throw them in a single rotation and they'll work. They just will. But when you want to start diversifying your axe throwing and going back to double and triple and quadruple rotations, even throwing axes at 80 to 100 feet, or you want to start doing some trick throws, or you want to start doing some highly dynamic throwing hard, spinning around, doing some back spinning throws, that's when your weight in your axe head and your handle length and all that is going to actually matter. In my experience, in my opinion, you're going to have to modify some of these to get them to go past a generic single rotation. One thing that I always found that people don't consider when it comes to what makes a good flying axe or a good throwing axe,
Dead center. Love it.
is you.
I taught him that throw, by the way.
Mechanics, throwing style, how you throw an axe. No one considers that. You have to understand that sometimes it's not the axe, it's you. And the way that you throw, or the way that you're throwing, or the things that you're doing which are causing the axe to not fly well in the air. That's something else you have to consider too. Taking the axe out of it, how is your throwing style? How is your throwing mechanics? Are you able to stick the bit every time you throw it? Are you having the same issues no matter which axe you use? Because if you're having the same problems with different axes, then it's probably not the axe, it's probably you. And before we get out of here, I'm going to say this. Do not be afraid to modify your axes. And if you're wondering, Wes, what modifications can I do to my axes to make them better flyers? Well, stay tuned, because in the next video, I'm going to show you guys some modifications I've done on some axes that I either said weren't great flyers, or maybe they only perform well at a single rotation, and I've done modifications to them now, and they performed way better than they did when I first got them. So thanks for all your support. I hope that this video helps somebody out here. I can't cover everything, guys. The video is probably going to be forever long as it is. But subscribe to the channel. Stay here. And I'll show you guys over months and years of axe throwing with repetitive videos that I put out, how I can help you guys in your axe throwing game, and how I can just make your axe throwing experience a little better, or maybe picking a good throwing axe. Consider that. Consider subscribing and stay with me and Dave. He could use a friend.
The only friends I need are the ones paying top dollar for my axe rituals. It's a bargain right now.
Yeah, you're right, Dave. You're right. I forgot to tell everybody. Some of these axes Dave performed his axe ritual on, which made it a better flyer. Thanks for the support, guys. Thanks for making this channel what it is. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave me a comment. Leave me a like. Helps the video, and it helps get out to people that are trying to find axes and decide what makes a great flyer. Until next time, guys, I'm out of here. See ya.